starting with a panel on Asia and its place in a global token economy. Please give a big hand to our moderator and our speakers. Our moderator for the session will be SAMSON Lee, who is an investor, founder and CEO of CoinStreet, and also partner, co-founder of the Blockchain Center of Hong Kong. Joining us are our speakers, Professor David Lee, who is a professor at Singapore University of Social Sciences, director at Left Coast, and co-founder at Block Asset Ventures. We also have Anna FRANKOWSKA, Nitechain CEO and co-founder, and also a Forbes 30 Under 30. Alex, CEO of chiliZ, socials.com, and the chiliZ blockchain campus. And of course, VAYS, who is a prolific trader, analyst, and content creator. Take it away, Samson.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's such a great pleasure to be here, also with a lot of experts from the industry as a panel. So today, the topic is Asia and its place in the token economy. It's very interesting, great pleasure to have a very diverse panel. So I'll let them to introduce themselves first. So for myself, I'm SAMSON Lee. I'm the founder and CEO of CoinStreet. We are an investment bank in the crypto world, so we help companies to be successful in this space. We have an asset management platform in Singapore. So that's CoinStreet. May I ask the...
Sure. So my name is Alex DREYFUS. I'm French, based in Malta for the last 12 years. And I run a company called chiliZ, which raised $60 million a few months ago. We have a strong presence in Asia because we are focusing on tokenizing sports team. So we made a deal with Juventus, Paris Saint-Germain, and we have like 20 other soccer team and other sports team that we're gonna tokenize in the next few months.
Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Nitechain. Basically, we are tokenizing nightlife sector through creating an incentive mechanism, rewards system for the nightlife ecosystem, consumers and businesses. We started around 3 years ago, first with the traditional technology app called NightSet. That's marketplace connecting people with nightlife scene in real time. So everyone has up-to-date information on what's happening, and now we're enabling the platform through blockchain technology. And originally I'm from Poland, but I moved to London 9 years ago, and now I'm moving to Shanghai. And my background is economics and investment banking. I spent there a couple of years.
Hi everyone, my name is VAYS, former Wall Street, about 10 years. Joined the crypto ecosystem in 2013, quit my job in 2015. Don't really even consider myself from New York anymore. I spend about 10 months a year traveling conferences, explaining what Bitcoin is, what a blockchain is, watching the whole space evolve. I run a pretty popular YouTube channel, so just find me there as a VAYS YouTube channel.
Hi, my name is David Lee. I teach and do research on fintech and blockchain at Singapore University of Social Sciences. The other half of the time, I'm at the co-partner at Block Asset, and we invest for decentralized technology and looking at impact for e-financial inclusion.
All right, thank you. So as you can see, we have a very interesting and diverse panel today from different countries, different backgrounds, all coming together to talk about the topics, Asia and its place in the global token economy. So first of all, Asia, right? We all go back to history. Bitcoin started in US and got popular in Europe. And then eventually, we see more focus now in Asia. To me, personally, I love to hear, obviously, from different guests. To me, when it triggers why and when this whole industry get the attention from Asia is where EOS start. Because EOS, as you know, block peers and the founding teams a lot from Korea when they're doing gaming, and a lot of the funding team is from Hong Kong actually. And when they did the ICO, is like the team from Asia that got a lot of attention. How about you guys? When do you notice Asia become an interesting place in the whole token space and blockchain space?
In my case, actually, funny enough, and I'm not afraid to say that publicly, I was actually an opponent of cryptocurrency almost barely a year ago, because I come from the online gambling industry for 13 years, and I saw all the dirty things that can happen with cryptocurrency. So I didn't want to expose myself and work in that space. But I learned technology, I educate myself, and our team learned a lot how to embrace blockchain technology and how cryptocurrency can challenge and disrupt industries. So as a European company, we also decided to focus mainly in Asia because that's where you have the most massive, I would say, user base in terms of adoption or potential adoption. As Anna was saying just before, is that's where you have the most active user base in terms of mobile users, obviously. And I will say something a little bit controversial as well, based from my former gambling industry. Is Asia is one of these area where gambling is illegal in many ways. So for anyone who needed a fix in gambling, when cryptocurrency started, that was a very good alternative. So that's bad, but that's also how it helped to start.
Yeah, so I'm technology entrepreneur first, so I've been always following what's happening in Asia, what are the adoption rates, like the different technologies, what are the numbers behind it. And for instance, it always amazed me that, for instance, 92% people in China prefer mobile payments rather than cash. Or there are like startups like Kakao, which has 50 million active users. And now it's enabling its platform through blockchain technology as well. So first I was like, okay, it's amazing adoption rates, massive target audience, perfect demographics, really with preferences towards mobile first. And then obviously blockchain is the natural next step for specific sectors. So I think like really like you have top 3 or even more exchanges based in Asia. You have established startups that are already enabling their platforms through blockchain technology. So I think Asia is it's been happening, it's happening, and it's going to be the future, personally, I think, leader in the space.
Hi, everyone. I've done my fair share of traveling all throughout Asia. And that was a good point on mobile payments, especially in China. They're becoming very, very popular. So it is good fertile ground for the future of payments. But as far as the token side of things, I don't see how Asia will separate from the rest of the world. The token economy or the attempt to create this token economy is pretty much, I feel, like evenly spread throughout the world as I continue to travel. And it's evolving very, very quickly. And yeah, I'd like to, we'll say a few more specific comments about it later.
Okay, I was in the financial industry for 20 years as a hedge fund manager and also involved in REITs and property development. And in 2012, I decided to do full-time research. And my research topic was income inequality and also how to grow the business. And I realized that Asia is a huge market with 70% of the people excluded from the financial and economic system because they do not have a formal bank account. And I started researching companies like Ant Financial and also other centralized financial inclusion, fintech companies. And then I realized that there's a technology in 2013 called Bitcoin that have very few transactions, 7 transactions per second. But I was looking at blockchain as well, separation of token with the blockchain. But I've come to the conclusion that eventually I think token economy will be growing a lot in Asia for various reasons, which I'll share later. But the main thing is that most of the countries in Asia are not in debt. Most of the countries in Asia have a high handphone penetration rate, and 6 out of 10 countries are over 100%. So time is ripe for decentralized financial inclusion.
Right. So token economy, I guess it's all starting the cycle starting with the investment. As we are aware, from last year, back in Q4, we all know 40% of the worldwide transaction of Ethereum or ETH is from Korea, right? And the Japanese is one of the first, the government actually declare regulation Bitcoin is legal currency, right? And we also see a big wave of company, especially last year, and start coming out to Asia for fundraising. So how do you see this position of Asia being a fundraising area for the industry?
I guess we should split between fundraising and usage, because eventually, if there is no usage, there is no need of fundraising. In our particular case, I spent actually most of my time this year in Korea as traveling. We did a lot of meetup, and it was fascinating, especially for a foreigner, to attend events where you have like 1,000 people in front of you from a very large spectrum. You literally had retired people and young Korean people, and they were thrilled to engage and see this new project. On the other end, being a little bit objective, there was so many scammy and so many opportunists, but opportunists in a negative way, that were presenting and that was presented in front of this audience that was also uneducated, because nobody knew 1 year ago what is a good project, what is a bad project. Or so, some did, but so I guess I always use that example when I go to Korea, which is very different from Europe in that way. When you pay a taxi with your credit card, you don't have to enter a PIN code, you don't have to sign. It's true as well with a restaurant. You can spend $200 US dollars without signing any transaction, and yet your transaction go through in Korea. So there is a relationship with trust and payment that is very high. And at least in Korea, what I've seen from the people I've met is there is this adoption already of trusting digital payments and all this Kakao Talk and all these tools that exist. So this population, and that's true with other Northeast Asian countries, are already ready to embrace new digital payments and new technologies.
Yeah, so to give you some idea about numbers of financing in Asia. So last year, for instance, Singapore was the third country by the amount of funding raised, and now like traditional funds like Golden Gate Ventures are now setting up crypto arms to invest in the projects. But personally, for instance, like I'm a big fan of blockchain technology, of rewards, incentive mechanisms, etc. I'm not entirely sure, for instance, about ICOs and funding through tokens. I'm a huge believer, as a traditional tech person, in a smart funding, in a smart money. When, for instance, VC invest in startups, in companies, they not only bring funding, but expertise, network, know-how, etc., which is essential for any company to build a really good product and introduce it and then expand it. Because otherwise you end up with thousands and thousands of investors that not necessarily have aligned interest to yours. So they're more opportunistic, versus when you build a company, it's a long-term play really, and it's building a value.
All right, so in all my travels through Asia, my favorite place for payments is actually Hong Kong. The reason for that is the Octopus Card. You land at the airport, you get this card pretty much for free. You put like a 50 Hong Kong dollar deposit on it that you can get back when you go back to the airport and leave the country. And you can fill this card through your bank account or with cash. And it's instant, it's accepted everywhere, all public transportation, pretty much all restaurants, pretty much everywhere, any business. And it's simple and it's fast. You don't even have to take it out of your wallet. You can just go and use it. And it's totally anonymous, right? Because I can fill this card with cash at any 7-Eleven, even at the airport itself, and no one cares. You go spend your money, okay? It's actually a lot more functional for anonymity of payments than even Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. And so they're way ahead. I actually haven't seen that functionality anywhere else. All the other ones are pretty much like even WeChat, for example. I mean, all of that is tracked. The government knows exactly what you're spending, how much you're spending. And the reason I say this is because there's two components within this token economy and payments. There is the payment part, there is the money part that you want to be as anonymous and cash-like as possible, because it's nobody's business what you're spending your money on. And the other part is the database. And the database part is very, very interesting because everyone has to agree on the database. So Bitcoin needed its own database because it is money itself. Bitcoin can't function on any other database other than the Bitcoin database. But when you look at something like Ethereum, it's currency and the database to serve a function for other tokens. But why does it need its own native currency? And people will realize that it doesn't. And the token economy, I believe, can't really work because when everyone has their own token, it's like everyone having their own language. They all have to agree to a base layer. Maybe we'll talk more about that, but I'll pass it on.
Okay, I think we start off with Japan, who actually now have a free payment system using all different currency, and that, I think, is a very good move for any government. And probably we will see a lot more government having their own cryptocurrency or digital currencies that will allow smart contracts to actually transact and cross blockchain. A lot of transactions will come from there. As far as token economy is concerned, Asia becomes a very interesting place because of various reasons. One, culturally, I think in Asia, they trust their government relatively more than the rest of the world, and that is a very positive thing because the whole idea of decentralization is about distribution of trust. But in the process, we have very inefficient ledger, like a blockchain, and we realize that we need to balance. At a certain point, we still need certain trust, either off-chain or on-chain, but the process of distributing trust and decentralization have to go on. So when you are able to balance between centralization in terms of governance and decentralization in technology, you can achieve a lot more. And in the token economy, it's just not about payments. It is a lot more in Asia where you can tokenize assets which are dead capital. For example, livestock, which is dead. You cannot do a repo, you cannot transact in the international market. But once you tokenize non-securitized assets, you are actually bringing back not only the people who needs the lending and the borrowing, and you are bringing back asset classes, and the world needs more new digital assets, more assets to transact in order to grow. The world needs more people to join the economy and the financial system in order for it to go. Because at the moment, without the token economy, we are growing on more complex financial products, we are growing on more leverage through the property markets, real estate, and the rest. So I think Asia provides a huge opportunity for the token economy to grow.
Thank you. And Tong, I absolutely thank you for bringing out that example of Hong Kong, right? And so for some of you familiar with this payment card is called Octopus. It is a very interesting example because to me, it is the first large-scale decentralized payment system, right? So what it does is you get a card, excuse me, and the balance actually stored in the card, right? When they roll out like maybe 20, 30 years ago, everybody is doing centralized server-based authentication. It's the first one who keep the balance in the card without a central server. And it's anonymous, right? But it's proven once it's being user-friendly, it could adopt a large adoptions. In Hong Kong, the penetration is 99%, I think. So I think that could be a very interesting example. And also very interesting, we talk about token economy and many of you bring in the use case of payment, right? So payment could be a good start, but as we know, in order to really grow the whole space, the whole token economy, token is not a lot more than payment, right? It could be a right, it could be a gas on Ethereum, as you say, and it could be many things, right? So how do you see this tokens actually going in the future?
In our particular case, we work with most of the biggest sports team in the world. Let's think about Juventus, for example, where there is Ronaldo as a football player. What we are doing with them when we are tokenizing or creating a Juventus token in our platform is we are not creating a token to be spent. We are not creating another currency. I'm not actually a big fan of creating thousands of currency. As Tone will say, it's a bit of having different languages and eventually you need to go to the same one. But in our case, we are creating fan voting right. So we agreed with the sports team that whoever owned that token is entitled to vote on whatever the team is asking. So you become a member, you become a loyal fan, and you are getting rewarded because whatever the team is going to ask you, only the token holders are going to be able to vote, and they are going to enforce the outcome of the vote. So as a sports fan, that's the ultimate nuts, as we say in poker, because it's the ultimate dream of being listened and being heard by their football team. So we use blockchain as a technology and tokens, not really as a currency, rather as a digital asset, meaning I own this, this is my voting right, and as long as I own it, I can vote. And by creating a limited supply, by creating integration to their millions of users that they have, we think that's going to be one of the rare applications, should I say, that has a real scalable usage.
Yeah, gaming is a great example, and it's definitely one of the hottest sectors in Asia overall. And so is, I think, search and like social networks and obviously mobile payments. So maybe let me touch upon social networks, and that's what I'm actually focusing on, because I personally love how tokens create vested digital economies where you can align incentives of different stakeholders, so their businesses or users. So for instance, in our case, when we are tokenizing a nightlife sector, you have consumers, party goers or pub bars goers, who constantly, for instance, share information on social media, pictures, videos, comments. That information enables others to know like what's happening, where to go out, etc. They're loyal customers of some pubs, bars, karaoke bars, or they spend money. And all of this activity brings so much value to the nightlife economy. And in fact, everyone is a mini promoter, and no one really gets rewarded for that. So I think what the tokens can do is really kind of reward people for the contributions, enable them to monetize the activity, and that's for nightlife, but it can be for sports, can be for any community that has common interest. And the tokens you earn, you can spend within one digital ecosystem. Like in our case, again, it's nightlife, so you go out, you're active, and then you earn, and then you spend, it's distributed via Proof of Stake, and then you spend on tickets, drinks, tables, whatever the stuff is available within your particular economy. So I think that will be another trend for the tokens to be applied to specific marketplaces, to specific social networks of common interest. And again, Asia has amazing adoption rates for social networks.
So look, tokens is not an invention of the last 3 years. I mean, we've had tokens forever. Airline miles are tokens. Reward points at hotels, they're tokens. We've always had tokens. So what has actually changed? Well, here's what changed, right? When you earn airline miles, the airline, you start a company, you start the airline company, you have a business, you have customers or clients, and you have a company that is functional, the company is making money, and you want to reward those users, so you give them the points. And in order to not to confuse airline miles with the publicly traded equity stake of investors in the airline, these points aren't really transferable. They're to you as loyalty points. What has changed is the sale of these loyalty points before the company ever exists. So it's almost like the airline is selling you airline miles that you can, it's up to you what you decide to do with them. They're selling you airline miles before planes are even built, before the infrastructure is even set, before they even had people. And you're speculating on the future of what those airline miles will give you, or you're treating them as a quasi-security of the company. Eventually, the laws and regulations on securities are going to catch up. If you're doing this in a developed world like the US or Europe, The regulation is already catching on. If you're doing it in some parts of Southeast Asia or some of the other developing world, they may or may not care, but eventually they're going to care. So that's the slippery slope you're running into. I'm not really a fan of that. The utility token model has come and gone, and I think the easy money has been made. I don't see an unknown raising $60 million again on a token for a company that doesn't yet exist, and it's something that they may or may not do in the future. I mean, I think it was dumb luck that Ethereum didn't actually collapse. They almost ran out of money. The Ethereum platform almost didn't launch, and they had millions and millions of dollars, and a lot of these things do get scammy. China looked at 60 ICOs. I saw the list, and every one of them was pretty much a Ponzi scheme. I think the easy money has already been made, and it's time to actually build some of these companies that are functional, and people that bought into them, 99% of them are going to end up losing money. I mean, at the end of the day, they are nothing more than a loyalty point that is worth a fraction of how much you spend to participate in a good business, like with airline miles.
Okay, I think when token is being mentioned, a lot of people just think that it is just a financial securities or asset to just be traded, but token is more than that. Token, it includes, an identity can be a token, membership can be a token, livestock can be a token. So there's a lot more that a token economy can do to link up with the virtual world. So that's something absolutely important to understand, that token is just not a security. You can have security token, which actually can tokenize the security, but you can also tokenize non-securities. Use case example, you can actually tokenize or digitize identity of refugees, because they need identity. Without an identity on blockchain, it's going to be very difficult. So a token is not necessarily a financial asset. A token can be something of economic value, which can contribute a lot to the economy, like the case of the refugee identity. The other case would be that you can tokenize the livestock. You never be able to own a cow or livestock in Myanmar, cross-border. We are sitting here, we could trade cow token somewhere else, and we don't have to buy the whole cow. We can buy 10%, 15%, or even 1%. We can use that to be, the token can be a token security. The token itself may not have the characteristics of all the securities, but you can actually enable to become a security and start to pledge it, do a repo, and do a lot more than what it is. So I think it's important to differentiate between security law and token law, and we may need to have a new token law going in the future.
Can I just comment on that real quick? Yes, you could certainly do tokens that have nothing to do with financial instruments. And the underlying question you're going to have to ask is, what database am I going to use? Everyone seems to forget the question that, sure, we can do tokens that you can transact globally. The question is, what database are you using to move those tokens on? And right now, the database that the majority of the people have chosen is Ethereum, and now people are realizing that it can't scale, and it's not going to function in the near future because you can't run your own node, and there's no reason to even decentralize the underlying database, which is why I'm really happy with today's news that I saw Amazon is launching a nice global database that a lot of the stuff can actually function on without the inefficiency of decentralization, because it's just not needed. Just need an underlying layer that people can move those tokens on top of.
Can I just respond quickly?
Yeah,
I think
respond as
back
well.
to my first comment about inclusive blockchain. I think going forward is about smart contract. Without smart contract, you can't do cross-chain. There are many techniques, but smart contracts seem to be one of the most interesting. So when we talk about blockchain or Bitcoin, Ethereum, people tend to think that there's only one blockchain in the world. That's not true. What we need is to have inclusive blockchain ecosystem where blockchain could talk to blockchain. It's the interoperability that's important. The standards of blockchain, which ISO is doing, is important. The standards for smart contract, standard for blockchain, design, consensus, and so on, that all are important in the sense that we must be in an inclusive world where blockchain can talk to blockchain, and you could have a blockchain just for identity. You could have a blockchain just as an incentive for people to collaborate. So we need to think in terms of an ecosystem of blockchain, where blockchain become a node in the entire blockchain ecosystem.
Yeah, well, I will disagree with Tone as well, because I'm not going to say database, the choice of the database is irrelevant, but I'm working in the internet space since 1995. And I've seen the different cycles, bubbles, technology evolutions, and we've made a choice of using Ethereum, for example, today. But we are chain agnostic. If it dies tomorrow, I don't care. I can swap, I can change.
What database is you talking on?
Right now, we are using Ethereum.
Are you running your own node? Are you processing all of your own transactions?
I don't care about that. I'm talking about usage.
So
I'm not talking about the technology.
If Ethereum stops working tomorrow,
Yeah,
what
of course we
happens
have
to
our
all of
node.
the $60 million that people have invested in your token?
Not people,
How do you know
private
who
investors.
they are?
So yes, we have our own node, first of all. Secondly,
Is it functioning?
yes. You want
Sure.
to come at our office? We have 40 people. Come to Malta. It's the blockchain island. You will see that it's amazing. And just to be clear, because it's fun, we did raise 60 million, not as an unknown, but as someone who has worked for 22 years in the internet industry and being backed by professional investors.
So sorry.
Sorry.
Our time is up. Thank you so much for the engaging discussion.
May I make one closing comment? Thank you for the interesting discussion, but for you to leave here, I think I want to bring up one thought, right? It seems the discussion now bringing an idea, moving forward, this could be split into two paths. We talked about a decentralized database, which might or might not involve a tokens. Right? It could be one stream independently. And we also talk about now tokens. It could be Internet of Value, which could be security tokens or asset-backed token, which might or might not even use a decentralized database. Right, because you bring up there's some hybrid database coming out now. It might not be decentralized. It might be have some cloud element. So moving forward, it will be interesting to see how this two path is moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
to Samson and our amazing panel of speakers for bringing discussion from Asia into the deeper themes around blockchain, smart contracts, and inclusion.